Hi everyone and welcome to this video, which is a video designed to share some of the decks I've created for the Lord of the Rings living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. So this video is specifically about the Eagle deck I've created, which I just wanted to share with you. And this deck is 50 cards and it's based on one core set, so you only have one copy of the core set, and all the adventure packs up and into including the Long Dark. So I'm making use of a hero from the Long Dark there. So the deck is basically a fighting deck, so fighting and defence, and it can handle a bit of questing, but that's not its strong point. So you probably want to pair this with another deck, although I have actually won a few scenarios with this solo. It's probably more of a sort of multiplayer deck than a solo deck. Okay, so I'm going to take you through the heroes first. The first guy here in front of us, looking on his horse there, is Prince Imrahil, who's probably one of the best heroes in the game, I think. So he's 2 questing, 3 attack, 2 defence and 4 hit points. And the ability which is really very useful is in this deck, after a character leaves play, you can ready him. So once per round, it's important to remember it's just once per round. Then whenever something leaves play, you can ready Prince Imrahil, which means you can get questing and attack out of him, or that he can attack and defend, both of which are very, very useful in this deck, as we'll see. So the second card, probably no surprise here, we've got Boromir. So I should say this is a leadership tactics deck. Most of the Eagles are tactics cards anyway, so it's probably no surprise that there's a tactics, couple of tactics heroes here. Boromir, we've got 1 questing, 3 attack, 2 defence, 5 hit points, massive 5 hit points. And again, an amazing ability. We've got the ability to ready him if we raise our threat by 1. As you'll see, the starting threat in this deck is reasonably high. It's 31, which is pretty high. So we're not going to want to do that too much, but it is pretty handy to be able to ready him with just 1 threat. Ideally, you might want to partner this deck with a spirit deck that's got some kind of threat reduction, so that you can keep that danger down, so you don't hit 50 too quickly. Obviously, you can scar Boromir with still 2 damage, but I don't think I've ever done that in nearly 100 plays using this guy, so I'm not sure it's the most useful ability. Okay, our last hero, we've got Hama. Now this is from the Long Dark, one of the more recent heroes. This deck, key to this deck, 1 questing, 3 attack, 1 defence. So not the strongest on defence, but not too bad. And 4 hit points. But the ability here is what we're going to be making use of. So after Hama is declared an attacker, we can return a tactics event from our discard pile to our hand. And then we need to discard a card from our hand for taking one. As we see as we go through the deck, that we're going to use this a lot. In the Eagle deck, we're going to make use of the Eagles are coming to find Eagles, surprisingly. And so if we can keep getting that event back in our hand, we can actually get a handful of Eagles very, very quickly. So let's move on to the events. We've then got, first of all, very familiar card to anyone that's played the game a bit. From the core set, we've got Sneak Attack. So probably very familiar to most people. We can put 1 allied card to play from our hand and it comes back at the end of the phase. Important to remember it's the end of the phase. I've sometimes seen people leave it to the end of the round, but it's actually the phase, so either the quest phase or the attack phase, combat phase, it will come back at the end of that phase. There are 2 reasons we want this card. One is this next guy, who's the descendant of Thorondor. So 1 quest, 2 attack, 1 defence, 2 hit points. His response, after he enters play, does 2 damage to someone in the staging area, and he does exactly the same when he leaves. Pretty powerful effect. Obviously with Sneak Attack we can bring him in to damage an enemy in the staging area for 2. Then at the end of that phase, which is usually pretty quickly, he'll then do another 2 damage to that same enemy. Now think of things like Water in the Water, recent quest, the Long Dark as well, the Water in the Water with the tentacles sitting there in the staging area. Very, very powerful. We can actually get rid of one of those tentacles before it even has a chance to engage. So it comes in, he flies in, pecks at the tentacle and flies off again. It's a really good effect there. You probably don't want to play this from hand, maybe late game. 4 tactics resources is pretty heavy, but you might want to consider it, sneak attacking it in and then keeping it in your hand. And hopefully draw another sneak attack as well. So our next card, again, probably no surprises. From the core set, we've got Gandalf. Again, playing sneak attack, it seems to make sense to have Gandalf as well. Of course, adding a lot of fight power to the deck. He can also quest, power quester as well, which this deck can struggle a little bit with. And also, having mentioned Boromir raising the threat, we can use him to reduce our threat as well. So if we want to, we can take the threat down by 5. Sometimes a good option. I tend to use this really for the 4 damage. Again, you can attack things in the staging area with that 4 damage, so that's a pretty useful ability. So that's our sneak attack characters. Here's another key card from this deck. I should say, by the way, all these cards I've got 3 copies of. So unless I say otherwise, we've got 3 copies of all these cards I've mentioned so far. So here we are, the eagles flying overhead. Great scene in the film, where the eagles suddenly appear to save the day towards the end of the film. So we've got action here. Search the top 5 cards of your deck for any number of eagle cards and add them to your hand. So obviously we haven't quite got to them yet, but there are eagles in here, or the deck would be pretty pointless. So we can play this event. We can then scry for the top 5, and we can take any number of eagles. So it's important just to remember it's any number, not just one. It could be better. I mean, 5 is not a huge number to scry, but as we see with Hama's ability, as we saw earlier, Hama can actually get this event back. So what you'd want to do, play it for 0. When you declare Hama as an attacker, you can then get these eagles are coming back again, scry another 5. By no time you should have a lot of eagles in your hand, which is what you want to aim to do. Speaking of which, we bring out our first eagle guy. He's going to swoop in. This guy looks absolutely massive. On the artwork, the orc looks really tiny, which just gives some idea of scale. It also seems kind of odd that in Journey to Roscabel, the little eagle on the objective card is so small. He's got a massive arrow sticking in it, and here this eagle was massive. So either the eagles range in size quite a bit, or something went wrong with the perspective in the artist that drew the card. But here we go, two resources, very playable from hand. No attack power, despite the fact he looks like he's about to claw the orc to death. But he can defend for 4 and has 1 hit point. Most people probably familiar with this card. He has Sentinel, which is often forgotten, so multiplayer is quite handy. The only catch is obviously when you use him, you need to pay 1 tactics resource to keep him. If you use him to defend, you need to pay 1 tactics resource to get rid of him. Usually that's not a problem. If you can't pay it, or you're very low on tactics resources, this deck doesn't really have a lot of resource fixing because most of the cards are quite low in value. So either just let him go, or if you can afford to pay it, just pay the 1 resource. But with 3 copies in the deck, you should hopefully draw another one again. Another fantastic eagle card, really one of the best in the adventure packs in my opinion. We've got the Eagles of the Misty Mountins. So that's cost of 4. Again, it's quite high, but the effect is so good that you really want to get these out as soon as possible. And we'll see why, but if you get them up early in the game, you're going to get more benefit. So we've got 2 questing, we've got 2 attack, 2 defence, and 4 hit points. So he can't have restricted attachments, which is probably not a great loss since I've never actually tried to put anything on him, but the idea of him flying around with a massive axe is quite a funny one. Eagles of Mountain Mountain gets +1 attack and +1 defence for each face-down attachment it has. So this guy can get pretty powerful pretty quickly. During the course of a game, it's not unusual to get perhaps 3 or 4 eagles underneath him. So massive powerhouse, and definitely worth playing, and definitely one that's worth powering up as soon as you can. Okay, time for another eagle-themed event attachment here. We've got support of the eagles, which is a boon, which is a very odd card type, given that's the only one we've had so far. But it costs 3 tactics resources again, which shouldn't be too much of a problem, sort of mid-game or even early game to get those. The action here is exhaust support the eagles to choose an eagle ally until the end of the phase. Attached hero adds that ally's attack or defence. You choose 1 to its own. Again, insanely powerful card with so many eagles in play, especially the eagles of the Misty Mountain that we just saw. You can easily be adding 3 or 4 attack to a character here, and massively powerful ability. Definitely, again, one that's worth getting out as early as you can. It can only get more powerful as the game progresses. So making good progress here. Okay, so we've been a bit underrepresented in the leadership sphere so far, but here's our first leadership card. We've got Grave Cairn, or Cairn. I have to check the pronunciation there. I'm going to go for Cairn. It costs one very low cost, 1 leadership resource, which shouldn't be a problem. Obviously, we've only got Imrahil as our leadership resource generation. And its response, after a character leaves play, add its attack to another character's attack at the end of the round. So here again, thinking about the eagles that do live plays, we had the defender, the winged Guardian. who leaves play if we don't pay that tactics resource. We've got other things coming and leaving through sneak attack. Their eagles might also die through just normal combat, just being shot down or bashed during the combat. So we can add that attack to another character's attack until the end of the round. Again, obviously you want to try and keep your eagles in play. You don't just want to sort of end up throwing them away. But if you do have to, this is a good event to have to get some benefit and add a nice bit of attack power to your attacking heroes or allies. Okay, time back to the eagles again. These are slightly out of order, perhaps, these cards. It would have made more sense perhaps to have the eagles together. Opposite really of Winged Guardian, this guy is an eagle that specialises in attack. Free attack, no willpower, no defence. So obviously the eagles can only do one thing or the other. They've got smallish brains, they can only defend or attack. But we've got a ranged ability here which also gets forgotten, probably more than the Sentinel of the Winged Guardian. It can't have restricted attachments, so no massive axes between its beak again. After an attack on which Vassal of the Windlord attacks resolves, discard Vassal of the Windlord from play. So same as the Winged Guardian, whenever we attack we want to either keep it in play or we want to just let it go if we haven't got the tactics resource. Again, Grave Cairn will trigger. We can use Grave Cairn to add the attack power, pretty significant. Free attack power can be quite a lot in this game to an ally or a character to get that attack power. So pretty good card. And again, the cost very low there. Okay, slightly not following the theme of eagles, but a very good card for this deck, and I'll explain why. We've got Watcher of the Bruinen, which is a 2-cost tactics with no questing, 1 attack, 2 defence, and 2 hit points. So pretty mediocre so far. I mean, there's nothing particularly amazing about that. What we get though, if we read the abilities, we've got Sentinel. He doesn't defend, doesn't exhaust, sorry, to defend. So he can actually be pretty good at defending weak allies. He can defend against an orc and then sort of still be ready to defend against another attacker. This is the good bit. So after he defends, I've discarded it from play or discard 1 card from your hand. Now, not immediately obvious, this is a very good combo with Hama, our hero. Obviously, Hama can fetch back tactics events from our discard pile. So what we can do here is look at discarding some of our tactics events, of which we've seen so far things like the eagles are coming. We can get that back. As I mentioned, that's a good starting tactic just to really draw all the eagles into your hand. And the nice thing about that card is, unlike something like Sigil Minor where you're actually discarding the cards, the eagles are coming actually shuffles those cards back into your deck again. So you don't actually end up depleting your deck and end up with a deck of 2 cards, just as you're about to be attacked by the Boromir. So basically, this guy's pretty good. You can discard a tactics event and then get that back again. Speaking of tactics events, here's our staple from the core set again. Feint, too useful not to put in. Again, provides some combat flexibility. Just stops an enemy attacking, only costs 1. Usually can be, if you manage your resources well, you're always going to be able to play that. So just a very good card. And again, we can get this back using Hama. I've actually managed to get chains going of this. If you have 1 in your discard pile, then you can just get it back and just keep stopping an enemy attacking. And the powerful enemies, you can actually stop them for 3 or 4 turns. Actually, if you've got 1 in your discard pile, it's actually an infinite chain. You can just keep getting back Feint and just keep stopping an enemy attacking. One thing, just from a rules perspective to clarify, is Hama can't, if you play Feint, he can't get back that copy of Feint that you've just played. So I mean, it's obviously got to be in your... The card doesn't go to your discard until the effect is resolved. So you'd have to do this first, then it goes to your discard, and then exhaust Hama to get it back. The reason I say that, the cards like Quick Strike, which I think I've got in this deck, don't interact with Hama very well, or as well as they could, because Quick Strike won't be in your discard when... Quick Strike declares Hama as an attacker, but he can't get Quick Strike, that copy of Quick Strike back. He can't target it because it hasn't resolved. This is, I mean, based on just reading around and sort of interpretation of the rules, I think we probably need an official ruling from Fantasy Folk Games just to clarify that, but it looks like he doesn't integrate with that as well as something, say, as Feint. Okay, time for another non-eagle ally. We've got Gondorian Spearman. Again, just ready to provide some lower cost allies in the deck. Pretty useful ability. He's, again from the core set, 2 resources. 1 attack, 1 defence, and 1 hit point. His Sentinel again, which can be quite handy in multiplayer. So after it declares a defender, he immediately does 1 damage. Can be really pretty handy, especially in some of the later questions to do 1 damage. This combined with the Descendant of Thorondor, who's doing 2 damage, as we saw, to the staging area, potentially 4 if you sneak attack him. This can actually take care of most enemies before they even reach you. If you've done 4 damage and then you can do another 1 damage here, the guy's probably either dead or is very close to death. You can just sort of chop in, just hit him very quickly to finish him off. So really good ally. Okay, we've also got here the attachment. We've got a tactics attachment, Born Aloft. This is just attaches to an ally. We discard it from play to return the ally to our hand. This is really included for use with Gandalf, primarily, so we can get Gandalf into play during your planning phase where you play allies and attachments. You can then attach this to Gandalf. Then before Gandalf wanders off, as he tends to do, and just leaves you to fight some massive enemy by yourself, you can say you're not doing that and basically get him back to your hand. So a pretty useful card. A little bit situational, perhaps the only bit of the deck I would tweak a little bit, but when it works it's pretty handy and you can get him back to your hand. Also you can stop the descent of the Winged Guardian and the other guy, the Vassal, the Windlord, from leaving play by doing this. If you return to your hand before you don't pay the tactics resource. So there's actually 9 cards in this deck that this will combo quite well with. Okay, next up we've got Hail of Stones, which is a 1 tactics resource event. So the action here, pretty recent card again, we've got Exhaust, a number of characters to deal so much damage to an enemy in the staging area. Now the reason I've included this in this Eagle deck is, as we've seen, Descendant of Thorondor can damage things pretty quickly in the staging area. Some of the bigger allies you can do that. You could also combo that with things like Gandalf to damage in the staging area. This can just be quite handy, so if you've got, say, 4 Eagles out, we can again exhaust those 4 Eagles and we can do 4 damage to an ally, an enemy, sorry, in the staging area. Very, very useful. Again, if you play your cards right here, quite literally, then you can probably deal with most things in the staging area before they even reach you. Pretty handy card. And again, being a tactics event, it's something that Hama quite likes. He can fetch that back from the discard and we can play that again. Next up we have another tactics ally. We have the Horseback Archer. Again, not particularly thematic in an Eagle deck, but again, I playing multiplayer is quite a handy card, which I tend to play a bit of multiplayer. So ranged is pretty handy. It's another ally that's sort of medium cost, just to keep the number of allies up in the deck a little bit, so that we're not sort of just relying on events. Back to our Eagle theme, I have here 1 copy of, just 1, so not the 3 here. So this guy is a massive cost. Landroval is unique, which is probably another reason not to flood your deck with him. Can be quite hard to get out, but late game you might have the tactics resources. I've just included 1 copy there, again because it's an Eagle, but also the ability is actually pretty useful, which you can get back a hero. So if a hero is destroyed, you can return that to your hand, and the hero actually is returned to play with 1 damage token. As I say, it can be hard to get out. Its attack ability is quite handy, so this is probably a late game card, and for that reason I only have 1 copy of that in the deck. I also have 1 copy of Horn of Gondor. Probably might increase that to 2 if I had another core set. I've never actually bothered purchasing another core set, not wanting to sort of flood myself with some of the more pointless cards just to get 2 copies of the rares, which is another thing, you would only ever get 2 copies of the rare cards, so you'd have to buy 3 core sets to actually get 3 of all the good cards. If you want 3 of Unexpected Courage, you'd need 3 core sets, which seems a bit of a massive investment given that money I'd rather spend on adventure packs and not boosting the coffers of Fantasy Flight games. So I've only got 1 copy of Horn of Gondor. It is unique, so once it's out you wouldn't be able to play another one anyway. But because we've got so many things in this deck, because we've seen that leaving play, coming into play, it just works quite nicely if you can get it out and it can generate some extra resources. But if you've got the extra copy, by all means sub it in for perhaps one of the less sort of Eagle themed cards, or one of the cards you don't think is going to work. Okay, to finish off, we've then got, I think I mentioned a little bit earlier, Quick Strike, which is a tactics event. Again, from the core set, probably no surprise when it's played with it, one of the most useful cards in the game, certainly one of the most useful tactics cards. Okay, and to finish off, we then have, I think I mentioned a little bit earlier, we have Quick Strike. Tactics event, very handy from the core set. We just exhaust the character before they even get a chance to attack. Again, we mentioned we can use things to hit things in the staging area of this deck very easily. We can damage things with the Gondor Spearman before they even get to attack us. This can then just help with that, generally crushing things before they have a chance to do anything, before they know what's happened. Also great art here, I quite like the guy, or the gal, depending on looking at the hair. but it's about to sort of stamp someone in the back there, the orc in the back. But pretty good card, and again, very cheap and usually very easy to get out. And Hama can get it back. But as I said, Hama can't get this card back the minute he plays it because it's not yet resolved, it's not in your discard. Okay, so that's the entire deck. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment in the comment section and I'll reply. I'll also put the card list, in the comments section so you can create the deck. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.